Yes, my wife's grandfather was in the Indian Civil Service, ICS. He was finished as the senior person in UP provinces, and as chief secretary. And my son and I went to look for where his first wife was buried. She was a young person in the 20s, and where it was expected that wives, when they were going to give birth, would go to the hills, and she didn't, and very sadly died in giving birth to my wife's grandfather. We knew where she was buried, but we couldn't find the grave. I think that he had lots of papers which he gave to Churchill College, Cambridge. I look forward at some stage to seeking them out and finding more about what he did. Well, I think that I don't know about the government in India, but as far as I understand, there are UK official records are good, and there are now records, Government Records Office, are accessible to scholars to look at. And of course, a lot of individuals have contributed their own archives to colleges and stuff. What's happening in India? Should they do more? But this is good, interesting material. It certainly it should be looked after where it still exists. There's a lot of recording data, but is it in a structured way? Should it be in a structured way? I rather doubt whether it should, because there's so much going on. The people are so diverse, and it's very hard to interpret it in a historical sense until many, many years have passed. So it would be misleading to think that current experience can be prepackaged and recorded in a way that will still make sense in a generation or two's time. I think the building is meant to last for a certain period, and decays, falls apart in a much shorter period. That almost certainly means it's not being built to the right building standards, or rather, the building standards have been there, and the regulations haven't been applied sufficiently vigorously, and that's clearly wrong. And it may point to either unprofessional practice or misuse of materials, and it's potentially, as we've seen in other countries, extremely dangerous if buildings collapse. So that's completely, in my mind, non-negotiable. That's got to be done. Should we be worried about buildings changing their use? Not at all. As you say, there are a lot of very old buildings in Oxford are still used. More than often, they're used for different purposes than they're originally built for, or they've been modified extensively. And of course, that's expensive. It's wonderful if you can have old buildings used and still for different purposes and still appreciated. You get that great effect of age and nurturing. But I'm not. In the UK, it's a similar situation, that the housing problem gets worse. There are more people who can't afford, or can't have access to decent housing. I don't know what the causes are in India, but in the UK, it's likely to be a combination of access to land, excessive building restrictions on where people can build, and those restrictions are there for good reasons. There's lack of much less public investment in housing than there used to be, and the private investment that there is not spread evenly across the market. So there's fewer social housing, much less social housing built than there used to be. In India, I would have thought there were a lot of advantages, potential, because the climate's easier in lots of ways. Labour is a lot less expensive. The technology is there, as you say, to build quickly. But presumably, there's similar problems with access to land. The essential economic questions are what are the incentives to build? But I think with the increasing will that I detect, I would be surprised if there wasn't a significant improvement